love the Winucci when it gets hot. I'm proud of all the things that I've got. I'm digging in moss bags up in the sand, and after work a cold beer in my hand, picking wild berries off God's land, and drinking my buddy's homemade wine, living Northwest wild. Hunting, fishing is my kind of style. I float the Winucci when it gets hot. I'm proud of all the things that I've got. I'm digging in moss bags up in the sand, and after work a cold beer in my hand, picking wild berries off God's land, and drinking my buddy's homemade wine in the Northwest wild.
All right, well, better late than never. Welcome to Fish Hunt Northwest, waiting on Tommy Donlan back in studio, and we are here. We're a little late. Matter of fact, we're 15 minutes late.
Yep.
I am supposed to be calling an individual right now to get him on the phone. So we're not going to take too long to get through this. We're going to forego our intro information. Nice to have you back, by the way.
Thank you. It's good to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you. Your trip to Cabo was amazing.
Yeah.
And so we'll delve into that a little bit later on. But we have some guests lined up we're going to be speaking with this evening. David Trout will be first up here on the phone shortly. We're also going to speak with Nello, Executive Director of CCA. Lots going on, Tommy, with the Gillnet Reform Rollback.
There is. As
we refer to it here at Fish Hunt Northwest. We have some bait creation things going on in the old bait lab tonight. I think a lot of you are looking forward to, and we are more than willing to share that information with you. Going to check in with Barnum. Hopefully he is done for the evening. We got him spun up here to join us sometime late in the show after shooting light. So hopefully he finds himself up on top of a ridge in cell service. Right. And we can check in with him because the Barnum clan, they knocked down another bull this last week. Yeah. Right? So
hopefully he's not shoulders deep in a bull right now.
You know what? If he is, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, hey, before we get too far along, and I'm glad for everybody hanging in there and joining in with us this evening here so far. Fish Hunt Northwest is presented by Better Homes and Gardens Pacific Commons Real Estate, located in Puyallup, Washington. And of course, our good buddies out there at Defiance Marine, Tommy. Defiance Marine, the manufacturers of the Allied series. Ooh, that Mustang hardtop just around the corner.
Yeah, right.
And of course, Arima and Defiance series as well. Check out everything they got going on out at Defiance Marine at defiancemarine.com. All right, with that, I am going to dial up our good buddy David Trout. Make sure you take us off mute there, Josh. And David Trout, the Director of Natural Resources, Nisqually Tribe, no stranger to the studio. He's been in here a couple times. He's been on the phone multiple times, so I'm hoping that's going to ring.
Here. Hello, Dwayne.
Hey, hi, David. How are you this evening?
There he is.
I am doing as well as can be expected. I have a glass of wine in my hand, and I'm talking to a good friend on the best fishing and hunting show in the Northwest.
Oh,
man.
Appreciate that. But first I'll say that's the wine talking.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, we got off to a little late start here, David. So we got you right at the start now that we got going a little late this evening. So you and I had a conversation earlier in the week, and just some things I've been kind of keeping track of. You know, a handful of us in the room here fish your beloved Nisqually River, and you guys do some fantastic work there. I can always count on you to kind of break it down, what's going on throughout the Puget Sound region, especially South Puget Sound, as you guys are at the end of the line, and truly, as we've seen over the years, Tommy, a good indicator of how things are going in the Puget Sound in some respects. We have our northern fisheries that they struggle. You have your mid-Puget Sound, and this southern end, man, on years that it's happening, everybody else seems to be pretty happy as well. On years that we're struggling in the south, it can be a pattern for what else is going on out there, right? So I always like to kind of pin down David and get the gist of some things happening. So, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. I heard a computer or something maybe. Hey, so early indications, David, you guys have numbers reflective of how this year's run is performing? I know last time we had you in studio here, I believe you gave me a preseason forecast, which was a little concerning, of about 17,000, which substantially down from, say, even 5 years ago. So if we didn't even hit that mark, and I know your fishermen are done with their commercial gillnet fishery now at the end of August. What do you think is going on? How is that run performing? Is it coming in even substantially under that 17,000 mark?
Yeah, we're very concerned about it, Dwayne. And first of all, thank you for asking me to be on the show again. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I miss being with you. Had a great dinner last time I was out there. It was fantastic. And you're right. Our fish are a really good barometer for how Puget Sound's doing. Our juveniles and adults have to go through the entire Puget Sound twice at going out and coming back. And so they sort of give you a sense of how healthy Puget Sound may or may not be. And right now we're concerned. As you mentioned, our forecast was about 17,000. And our best guess now is that the run probably is in the 6,000 to 8,000 fish range. So,
wow.
Almost two-thirds below what we expected. Our tribal harvest was incredibly small. Until yesterday, we only had 9 fish in our hatchery. Fortunately, we had a movement overnight. We've got 300 or so fish, which is still well below what we normally expect. By now, we would have thousands. But we're at 300, and so we're hopeful that we'll get our escapement needs at the facility, which is about 500. But it's not looking particularly good. All the fisheries in South Sound have struggled. The only hatchery facility that's done okay that I've heard of is Minter. They made their rack return and have a little bit of surplus going there, but Chambers is way down, and Deschutes was doing horribly, and Nisqually was doing very poorly as well. So South Sound not faring as well this year.
Yeah, and it kind of makes you wonder, what's going on. I mean, obviously, we kind of always focus on that Puget Sound component. I mean, we're in comparison, we're looking at a year of an amazing return based on preseason forecasts and actual run performance thus far as it relates to the Columbia River and the ongoing and reopening of certain sections of that river, Lower River in particular, an opportunity for recreational anglers time and time again. Abundance of numbers over Bonneville Dam, and the numbers just keep going. Those fish are out in that same ocean at some point. And so how is it and why is it we continue to have these struggles throughout this Puget Sound region and these rivers that all flow into Puget Sound? I know you guys have done extensive research and studies in the past. You've proven out-migrating smolt struggle. Obviously, Tommy and I are no fisheries biologists or managers, but we look at, what we can assess from knowing history and what we know, but obviously we have an out-migrating smolt problem of some sort, especially for the majority of all South Puget Sound to take such a hit again this year.
Yeah, a couple of responses there. One is that it's troubling to think that Puget Sound may be more lethal for juvenile salmon and maybe adults as well than all the dams on the Columbia River.
That's crazy.
And that system seems to be doing better over a longer period of time than we are in Puget Sound, and the trends are moving in a different direction. One of the big challenges we face in South.
Oh, we lose him? Oh, looks like we dropped the call. Tommy, did you pay the phone bill?
Yeah, I must have missed it, man. I was too busy tuna fishing.
In another
Had
country.
to pay the fuel bill.
Yeah.
You gotta love technology.
Yeah, sure do. Pick up where you left off, my friend.
Okay, so one of the challenges we're facing in South Sound is that we're really left with hatcheries to provide the bulk of the Chinook production. And just because the way hatcheries work, you can have these boom and bust cycles. If you hit the ocean conditions and Puget Sound conditions correctly with your release strategies, and they can survive and get through the marine mammal predation, you can have big years of over 40,000 Chinook in the Nisqually. But if that timing is off just by a week or two, or even a day or two, you could have runs like we're seeing this year that are just absolutely in the tank. And so depending on a system that is so narrow in terms of its out-migration timing and adult retiming really leaves you at significant risk. And so we've invested a bunch of resources and time in trying to restore a natural run into the Nisqually to expand the timing of these fish so they can take advantage of opportunities that are out there in Puget Sound, and they don't miss the windows all the time. I'm looking back at some of our previous returns, and we've had some amazing returns in the Nisqually, followed by really awful returns. And it really is about this narrow production window. So wild fish, naturally produced fish, are really the key to more numbers and better production and more predictability over time.
Let's, this is kind of a two-part question. Genetically, is there truly any difference anymore in the hatchery versus what we recognize as wild or natural spawn fish in the Nisqually River? And is the genetic footprint of the Nisqually fish very much similar or almost genetically the same as, say, Puyallup fish, Green River fish?
Yeah, so there really is no distinction between a vast majority of the fish that are spawning in the natural environment and our hatchery fish. The wild Nisqually Chinook went extinct in the 1960s as a result of poor hydro operations, loss of critical fish habitat, overfishing in the pre-terminal areas. A lot of things led to their demise, and they were replaced by a Green River stock, which is the same stock that's in the Puyallup, in the Green, in the Skokomish, in the Deschutes, in Minter. We basically have a single monolithic stock in South Sound. And that's the challenge for us, is how do we restore and recover a natural population, given that we have this Green River population to try to get to adapt to the Nisqually. And so when I say a vast majority of them are Green River-like fish, what we found in some recent genetic work, which is really pretty exciting, is that we seem to have a small portion of our population more closely aligned to North Sound stocks like the Skagit and maybe even Strait of Juan de Fuca stocks. So it appears that some of those stocks have strayed, found their way into the Nisqually, spawned in good habitat, and have returned to do it again. And so we're thinking maybe that might be a more reasonable way to restore a natural population than trying to get the Green River to adapt, which is just not doing very well.
So with the mixing of genetics, what is the limiting factor on how much the hatchery produces?
Well, so that's a great question. And so our current strategy is that we're going to use our hatchery population to restore our natural population. And we've got a strategy in place that includes maximal seeding of the environment, using adult supplementation when we need to. So we'll truck adult fish from our hatchery out into the environment just to get as many spawners as we can for a period of about 8 years. In 2025, we're supposed to then turn off the hatchery spigot and allow those fish to locally adapt to the Nisqually and do what they're going to do. And then over time, the plan is to reincorporate those into the facility, into the hatchery, so that the hatchery is more like the natural fish rather than the natural fish being more like the hatchery. And so how we use the genetics and how we use each one of those components will change over time. Now, the curveball in all of this is this recent finding that we may have this Skagit population that might be establishing itself, and it's making us take a whole new look at our recovery strategy. And it may look like we want to maintain significant difference between the two stocks and fish hard on the hatchery stock and lay off of the natural stock when it comes back. We're still looking for information to give us the clues. We'll hopefully have those in the next few years. It's exciting, but it's also very challenging because we don't know exactly what the answer is right now.
One of the complex challenges that I sit here and look at from 5,000 feet, David, is, you look at the upper reaches of the Nisqually River, pristine natural habitat, just really healthy spawning area in comparison to a lot of other watersheds throughout the Puget Sound, right? And then additionally to that, all the reclaimed lower estuary region that once that was revamped, reclaimed, and flooded, and as folks are familiar with now, we see that tide come all the way up to the west side of I-5 there as you're heading southbound. That enhancement process years ago was a game changer. And so I look at it as a system as a whole, and if we cannot get fish to come back in that, almost pristine in some places type of habitat, I really have concerns for the majority of Puget Sound in what it's up against when we struggle so much in the Nisqually Delta system.
Yeah, I'm with you, Dwayne. We've done so much work to restore and protect the habitat in the Nisqually. When we started down this path of trying to protect the key salmon areas on the river in 1989, we had about 3% of it in permanent protection, and that was the Nisqually Reservation and the Wildlife Refuge. But now, as we sit here today, 80% of the Nisqually is in permanent stewardship. And so it's only going to get healthier and stronger over time. And we're doing everything we can do in the river and in the estuary. But the problem is once they leave the Nisqually River and they swim through Puget Sound, they're out of our control. And that's where they're experiencing a bunch of their mortalities occurring in Puget Sound. And, we've talked about some of the work we've done with steelhead and tracking their survival or lack of survival through Puget Sound. And it's pretty clear to us that the seal population in Puget Sound is so large and it's taking such a massive hit out of Nisqually, Chinook, and steelhead that it really is the limiting factor in our ability to recover. We can do everything we can possibly do in the Nisqually, and if we don't deal with marine mammal predation in Puget Sound, we are not going to be successful.
Yeah, very good point.
I'm ready to hunt them.
Oh, yeah. Tommy's got several guns.
I'm ready to go.
Lend them to friends and the whole deal, yeah.
You got to ask your chef who comes to your show to get the recipes for these things, and we'll bring them down.
There we go.
Exactly. Hey, I'm kind of a numbers guy, so can you, thinking back, or do you might have it written down in front of you, what was your smolt release for this fall season return 2020 for Chinook?
Well, so we've typically in the Nisqually, we've released 4 million Chinook smolts, but in the last 4 years, we've shifted some of that production over to McAllister Creek, which is really a tributary to the Nisqually. So about 1 million fish go out of McAllister and about 3 million go out of the Nisqually.
Yeah. And we're going to get 6,000 to 8,000 on our return.
Mm-hmm.
So,
so speaking of that, what is the max number return that river system can handle? Is it really 6 to 8 or is it more like 20?
Well, if you're talking about hatchery fish, there probably isn't. Of course, there's an upper limit. I don't know that we've seen it, but we've seen runs, hatchery fish alone, at 44,000 fish return in 2017.
Right.
So it can support a lot of hatchery fish. The natural Chinook is a different story. Because of the genetic issues we're facing with the Green River, it's not a very productive stock. And so right now, if we get 1,500 natural fish, that's a pretty darn good year. And under our recovery plan, if we're successful over time, we could see as many as 10 to 15,000 of those fish, 20 or 30 or 40 years from now, if this all plays out and works well.
Yeah.
So we're not taking advantage of the full opportunity of the Nisqually River yet because we have this maladapted, poorly genetic fish from the Green River. And it's holding us back.
Gotcha. Hey, last time you were in, Dave, before you go, I just want to follow up. And you know how it is. People are always going to complain about gillnets in the river. And, you and I have had some very adult conversations, which I always very much respect you for. And the fact we can talk about harvest methods, techniques, gillnets, and alternative methods. And you're not offended by that. So I always tip my hat to you on that because that is a conversation we often can't have with many other folks. In that regard, last time you were here in studio, you said the Nisqually tribe was seeking alternative methods of trying to come up with harvest means that allow you to access more of your hatchery return and stay off your wild fish, because that's ultimately your goal, because you're handcuffed by those low numbers at times of your wild return, and it shuts your season down early. So any progress in that regard that we can let the folks know who are tuning in tonight that you guys are continuing to work on that effort, or any movement forward in that regard?
We are definitely working on that effort. And, when you get 20 or 25,000 hatchery fish back, but your fishery is limited because of the 1,000 fish, natural fish that come back, there's a lot of fish that go unharvested and go back to the facility that our fishermen and recreational fishermen should have access to. And so we're looking at different strategies. We were so excited about this year being a year where we could experiment with particular mesh gillnet to see if we could release fish alive out of a gillnet if we operated it properly. But the run's down so low, I'm not sure we're going to handle enough fish to get a sense of it.
Yeah.
Last year we tried cast nets, like those Hawaiian cast nets that folks have used on the Hawaiian coast to catch fish. Yeah. We use those in the river, and two things. One, some of our fishermen really love doing it because it's really active and they had a lot of fun doing it. Yeah. And they caught fish. So
that's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about that, Tommy?
Yeah. You get a 15-pound Chinook and a cast net.
Yeah, or a couple of them.
Yeah.
So you're able to catch a fish, and if it has that adipose fin on it, you're able to release it. And with our ratios, it's maybe 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 15 that you have to release. So there's an incentive for our guys to try it. So we've got some experiments going on this year. We're hoping to do a few more next year, though next year is a pink run, and that always complicates things.
Sure.
But we are looking for ways that our fishermen will be interested in implementing that will allow them to release the wild fish and keep the hatchery fish. And the other, I mentioned 2025 as being a key date for us, and it really is, because that's when we turn off the hatchery contribution to the recovery effort, and we have to sustain ourselves on a natural population, whether it's a green population or a Skagit population, whatever it is. And the rate of which we'll be able to fish is going to drop significantly. And so the time on the water, if we only fish traditional gillnets, is going to drop significantly as well. So by 2025, we hope to have 1 or 2 or 3 different gear choices that our guys are ready to implement, that they can go out there and release natural fish and kill hatchery fish. And that's really a motivating factor for my staff and for our fishermen and our elected officials. They want to catch those fish. We got to find ways to make sure we let them do it.
Yeah, very good points. Is it feasible to think that, is there any sort or type of fish trap that could be incorporated into a river system like the Nisqually?
Yeah, we've talked about that. We're going to experiment with the smaller kind of weir installations, fish traps. The river, in the recent years anyway, during September, we tend to get some really weird high flows.
Yeah.
So we're not sure a small personally operated trap would work. The other problem is making sure you can release the fish successfully. And where we catch most of our fish is down in the tidewater, and that becomes challenging. And then keeping the marine mammals out of the live box is challenging. We're not giving up on it. We think there's possibilities there. And it may look more like a trap at our hatchery creek to sort fish there and provide for the community, and also provide for the hatchery rack return. So we're looking at everything and anything that's out there. Nothing is a bad idea until we try it and it doesn't work. So we're definitely interested in experimenting and making this work for everybody.
Fantastic. Well, time has run out, as it always does. It's never long enough, but you are always a wealth of information, and we really appreciate and respect you. Always willing to spend time with us here at Fish on Northwest.
Anytime, you guys. I really appreciate it. You got a great show and a great audience out there, and if I can help out, let me know.
You got it. Have a good night.
Have a great night.
Take care, buddy. Thanks.
Take care.
Bye. Yep.
Cast netting Chinook.
Cast netting Chinook.
I don't think I would have ever heard that in a million years. Yeah, I know. Exactly.
We had that conversation last year, and they went out and did it, and they had moderate success. But, for what it's worth, and everybody that tunes in, and they know we've had these conversations with David in the past, and, gillnets are a sore subject with me. But you respect the person and the work and the efforts they were trying to do, because they got to take care of their folks too. I get it. When I was younger, I used to be one of them guys like, screw this, let's pound sand, just whatever. And now it's more
You used to be, or you still are?
No, I used to be.
Oh, okay.
Now it's more of a, hey, let's have those discussions.
Well, the interesting thing was, you mentioned variations of gillnets, right? He talked about a different form of net where you're able to actually selectively choose the Chinook out of that net and then release the wild fish. So I think there's a lot more details that go into that fishery than we would think.
Yeah, there are, and they have for years have monitored and run their fishery, and their commercial harvest substantially different than the majority of Puget Sound. They rely on the science and the data. Their fish bios and managers keep tabs on how the run is performing. They've shut their guys down and have left it open to recreational. They've shut us down, and then they go fish a couple days. It's a fine balance. But I'll give them credit. They're not, like right now, the whole lower end of the Puyallup is completely shut down to recreational opportunity. So I'm not saying I agree. I agree with all that comes out of north of Falcon and Puget Sound fisheries and how they're being constructed and some of these restraints we have and lack of opportunity for recreational. Skokomish is still a sticking point for a lot of us. Closing down from Main Street, the entire lower Puyallup River for a 2-week period right here in prime time when coho is starting to show up is a sticking point that I don't know how we arrive at those decisions. But when I can talk to a guy like David who's involved in that north of Falcon process, we have plenty of access on the Nisqually River. They model their fisheries, they monitor their fisheries, and he's willing to have those conversations. Now, what happens at the table when they make these decisions, Tommy, I can't say. Yeah. But he's one of those in the industry I have great respect for.
You know what we're running out of time on this subject, but you know what? What I heard is the Green River stock is not doing so well in the Nisqually.
Or throughout Puget Sound.
Or throughout Puget Sound. And so why would you try to make a bad stock work? Forget that one. It's not the one that was there originally anyway. Go get one that's going to survive and do extremely well. Let that one adapt to the river system. Call that one a wild fish and then roll with that. That's the part I don't get.
Well, we can convince NOAA and the propeller heads and all those at the federal level to give us the freedom to manage these fisheries and bring them back in robust numbers. Get a fish that is fit and able to handle the climate and the Puget Sound navigation, all those. We could talk about this forever. But, I mean, there are definite problems they've identified, and there's a lot they haven't based on this year's return. Once again, it's like, oh, my God, what happened? 4 million fish. Just year in and year
released,
out of this lower portion of South Puget Sound, out of those two rivers, McAllister Creek and Nisqually River, 4 million fish.
And we're getting 6,000 to 8,000
back.
Yeah.
So
nuts.
Everybody should be concerned.
Yeah.
It's still open for recreational fishing, though. So, by the way, just case in point. All right, let's jump out way behind on a break. We come back, Tuna Talk with Tommy. Grab your cup of tea or your glass of
your
wine.
Crackers,
sit back, stoke the fire, and get ready for a little bit of Tuna Talk with Tommy.
You're going to need a tequila for this one. Okay, just let you know right now. Go to the bar.
And your blankie, and we'll have Tuna Talk with Tommy. Come back right here, Fish on Northwest.
Marine is the one-stop shop for the Pacific Northwest angler. Whether you are looking for a small skiff to fish the Sound or rivers, or a huge offshore tuna machine, Defiance Marine has it. At Defiance Marine, be sure to power your boat with a Honda outboard package. Take advantage of the reliability and 5-year top-to-prop warranty on your Honda outboards. Our service department is always here to help and serve you as the customer. Did you know Defiance Marine has boat financing experts to help get you the best term rates on your new boat purchase? If you need financing for that new boat, call us today. We guarantee the best price, best service on a repower for your current boat. Defiance Marine is a Honda Premier dealership and one of the largest on the West Coast. Defiance Marine also carries all the gear that you will need. Everything from auxiliary kicker motors to fishing tackle and bait. Defiance Marine has certified technicians that are top-notch at their job. Some of the best in the Pacific Northwest at evaluating your boat issues and problems. Stop in today or give us a call for all your needs at Defiance Marine.
Hey, welcome back, Fish on Northwest. Wayne England, Tommy Dolan in studio. We are way late into the program. We've had one guest. We ran over, but that topic is one to pull away from.
Yeah, that was phenomenal. A lot of good information there.
Yeah. Before we jump to you in your Tequila Sunrise and Tuna Sunset, we have Alan is asking any updates on the sea lion takedown. So nothing specific to South Puget Sound or Puget Sound overall. The harvesting and or removal of sea lions, California sea lions and Stellar sea lions is basically for the Columbia River and tributaries. Nowhere beyond that has anything been agreed upon. I can tell you I was on the lower Nisqually yesterday just for a couple hours poking around. Three sea lions swimming up and down the river, literally chasing salmon in on the tide. Fish rolling,
That's
sea
crazy.
lion coming over. So they're right there around us when you're fishing, even if you're bank fishing. So with that, no sea lion removal, Puget Sound, but the focus will be on Columbia River moving forward. All right, Tommy, welcome back. Got a little tan on.
Yeah.
Sipped a few suds.
Yeah.
Put a little time in on the ocean out there.
That's right.
And you got into some tuna.
We did. So we went down to Cabo, San Lucas. We fished 4 days down there, and we ended up with 14 yellowfin at the end of the fourth day. Biggest one was 77 pounds, and we got to throw absolutely the kitchen sink at them. We were fishing the Yummy Flyer on a kite. So you put a kite out behind the boat, you're trolling 6.5 knots, and you've got this plastic rubbery thing that looks like a flying fish. And you have a release clip on the flight, on the kite, and then you just bring the Yummy Flyer in and out of the water so it looks like a flying fish skittering across the top of the surface.
And in natural predation instinct, they actually will follow those flying fish.
They do. So what they actually do is they'll find the porpoise school, right? And you want to put that Yummy right at the leading edge of the porpoise school. And what happens is those tuna are hanging out. You meter them, right? They're on the sounder. You see them down there below the porpoise. and they're just waiting, right?
Okay.
And as soon as you put that yummy flyer right at the leading edge of that porpoise school, and those porpoise are all kind of, you know, diving in and out of the water, it creates this like mode of competition, and those tuna will blow right through the school and hammer that yummy flyer, and it's an acrobatic show.
What the heck?
I mean, you see, you know, 70-pound tuna just flying out of the water, eating that yummy flyer. And the beautiful thing is that with literally all of your line out of the water hanging off the kite, you can get away with murder. I mean, we're using
get away with murder.
And we did, right? We're using 600-pound leaders, you know, 400 to 600-pound leaders, because they don't see it.
Here's the thing: when you're talking about that, you're talking about a fish with huge eyes,
yes,
swimming underneath the surface and looking, and can see this flying fish. Now, granted, they land in the water, but they also get airborne. And when them fish go on the attack, that flying fish could be in the water, could be coming back up, whatever.
And they can see it out of the water too.
That's my point, right? So us as humans looking into water and with light refraction and bending,
right?
Like when you throw something in the water and or if you try to shoot an arrow at a fish, right? It's a different game. There's a different thing going on there. And
there is.
Now you have a fish that's underneath and they're looking out into the air. I wonder what I'm just trying to do the science on this thing. It sounds very...
Yeah, you know, and it's the beautiful thing about it is that flying fish that you have, it's a good, you know, 100 yards, 150 yards, 200 yards at times behind the boat. Mm-hmm. So it's like if you got fish that are afraid of the boat, that yummy flyer, they have no clue. They don't even know there's a boat in the vicinity. It is way back there. And so at the same time, you can still run lures right off the boat. And so we were running, you know, 4 lures. We had some Nomad Mad Scad, which is kind of like a swimming plug that dives. We had a couple of those. We got quite a few fish on those. And then we had some bigger lures. I was kind of curious, you know, I thought we'd run a lot of bullets, but we were running a lot of the Koya lures, you know, the stuff that you would typically see in Hawaii when you're fishing, you know, blue marlin, something like that.
Yeah.
You know, lures that are about the size of a large kokanee. Yeah. You know, running behind the boat. And we got quite a few fish on those. And then as soon as you get bit on the troll, as soon as you get bit on the kite, we had live bait, right? Caballitos, which means little strong horse in Spanish. And so you take this bait that's just this tank, right? And you put a hook in him and you throw him out behind the boat. Because usually, you know, anytime you're tuna fishing, where there's one, there's more. Yeah. You're going to bring in the school. So we had multiple double headers throughout the week. We had 3.
Did you fish exclusively for yellows, or did you go for anything else?
We did. We fished exclusively for tuna. Okay. Yep, for 4 days. The Dorado bite was on fire down there. Oh. I mean, the majority of the boats were honestly, you know, hooking right outside the arch in Cabo, and they were trolling the beach, and they were catching a lot of 10 to 15 pound Dorado all day. But we really wanted to go for the tuna. Yeah. Yeah.
Is this a type of trip we could put together here at FHM with an invite extended out to folks, put a package deal together?
Oh, hell yeah. You bet. Huh? You bet.
What time of year would we want to do that, Tommy?
So those tuna start showing up in Cabo in July, and then that fishery stays good all the way into December and sometimes even into January. So really, when we were getting down there, it was, you know, it's really prime time. The day after we left, they were getting them 4 miles out of the marina and just hammering them.
4 miles.
4 miles. There was a boat that showed up with 9 fish by 11 a.m. To Griselda Smokehouse in Cabo, which was where we had our fish filleted and packaged for us. So
we're just going to kind of put that out there from time to time and see if we have any interest. So if you guys want us to work towards putting together some type of package deal, and we can invite a bunch of folks to come join us, I'm pretty sure Shing and whoever else, maybe Josh would like to bring somebody.
It'd be a blast. You know, Josh doesn't have a girlfriend though.
Well, he is on the market.
Oh, right? Yeah, true.
Right, so, huh? Oh, Lord. All right, we'll work on something.
Beautiful.
Something.
That's a good idea. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's try to see if we can't put something together. But it sounds like a blast. Jealous. The photos are amazing. And you guys, Justine, had a great time down there. So good for you. All right, we're running a little behind schedule as per usual, but we're going to jump out. We come back, Nello Picinich. CCA, we had a little decision come out of our Fish and Wildlife Commission this last week. Tommy, it's ruffled a few feathers relative to the Columbia River Gillnet reform rollback. Lots of different fishing organizations, conservation groups and whatnot weighing in. Commercial gillnetters also weighing in. And the commission made their decision. And so we would like to get CCA's perspective on this, of where they sit and the efforts and work that they had done along with NSIA and other groups over the past several years. This is something that was put into place, reminding folks, back in 2013.
About 7 years ago.
7 years of work now to completely reverse and go back to how things previously were. Again, we'd like to get CCA's perspective on how we got there and what's going on. So we'll jump out for a quick break. We'll come back. Nello Picinich right here, Fish Out Northwest.
An outdoor emporium, is the largest local outfitter in the Northwest since 1975, providing thousands of people affordable outdoor gear. This summer, make your next outdoor adventure more affordable by shopping at our warehouse-style pricing. We are a local Scotty dealer, offering sales, service, and repair. Located in Fife and Seattle, come visit us today. The outdoors await you.
It's easier than ever to browse homes and connect with an agent on the go with Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate's mobile app. With the app, your home search is synced across all of your devices, so you can pick up your home search anytime, anywhere. Take full advantage of an enriched, mobile-optimized map search experience. Use location services to quickly find homes near you that match your search criteria. Draw your own map boundaries to find homes in a specific area, and apply layers to view school districts, neighborhoods, zip codes, and more. The app's user-friendly design makes it easier than ever to find a home you'll love. Narrow down your search results, save your search criteria, and save your favorite homes. You can browse your saved homes in a list view that puts photos and key details like price and square footage right at your fingertips. Or check out your saved homes displayed on the map.
I got the whole night blocked out. So
all right,
you tell me.
You got it. Welcome back, Fish Out Northwest. Waiting on Tommy Donlan. We are here. Our guest on the phone, none other than Nello Picinich, Executive Director, CCA Washington. He has joined us in studio, Tommy, in the past. We've had him on the phone a number of times as these revolving door and these events kind of take place at the political level. You know, at the table there. You know, for those that may be just tuning in for the first few times, we cover a lot of ground here, Tommy. We talk about a lot of things we go out and do. We talk about a lot of things we, show how to do things in our bait lab with a lot of really in-depth how-tos and whatnot, our recipes of the week as we get back to doing those. It's full-rounded. Guests in studio, all those things. We are not afraid to go down that political line from time to time because somebody has to have these conversations. Right? Somebody has to have these conversations, and we don't shy away from them. We get a lot of response from folks out there involved in fishing and hunting that learn and get educated as to what happens in these closed door meetings, at these discussions, at the commission level. And I think it's important that you folks pay attention to this stuff because it really is kind of the nuts and bolts behind how and when we do or do not get to fish or do not get to hunt, those types of things. So, Nello, thank you so much for joining us once again this evening. Lots to talk about, so we're going to kind of get right to it here. Recent decision from the Fish and Wildlife Commission on the Columbia River gillnet reform rollback, as I refer to it. Let's do a little history lesson if we can, starting back with what this thing initially looked like as it was packaged up, how it was pushed out there, and what some of the goals were. Let's kind of start there for a little history lesson.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Dwayne. I appreciate you having me on the show. And I got to tell you, I like this segment here. We got tequila time with Tuna Tommy. I think I'm gonna be working towards that trip. But hey, so focusing on the Columbia. Yeah. So, back in 2012, 2013, when this whole process got off the ground, if you remember, it started with Measure 81, which was a ballot initiative in Oregon, which was to eliminate non-tribal gillnets from the lower Columbia River. So that whole process then spawned Governor Kitzhaber getting heavily involved. And instead of going the ballot initiative, convincing those folks that were behind it, which CCA was one of them, to instead come together, get everybody at the table and try to come up with some type of compromise plan that we could work toward, with the goal, of course, of eliminating gillnets, non-tribal gillnets from the main stem Columbia River. So with that, they then spawned the process, which had commissioners, staff from Oregon and Washington, had commercial advisors, recreational conservation advisors from Oregon and Washington, and they went through a rather elaborate process to come up with the policy as it was adopted in Oregon and Washington. And by the way, you guys know there's a lot more detail to it than that, but that kind of in a nutshell is what got us to what we would consider the compromise or the Kitzhaber policy that was adopted. And in Washington, what that looked like was no gillnets in the main stem Columbia River, lower main stem Columbia River, after a 5-year transition period. And in that 5-year transition period, the staff was supposed to, number one, implement a buyback program, so to buy back the commercial licenses, those that didn't want to continue fishing, to work on enhancing off-channel areas, whether that be Oregon and Washington. Nobody knew when we started that process, and it's managed jointly between the states. So Washington fishers can fish over in the Oregon off-channel areas, always have, and then develop alternative gear. And that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it. Again, there are 12 or 15 points there. There were some economics that were looked at and so forth. But in a nutshell, that was it. And I would just reiterate, the goal was to get gillnets, non-tribal gillnets, out of the main stem Columbia after a 5-year period.
Yeah. Now, how many gillnetters were there originally back in 2013? And then how many are there today after that buyback program has had time to take place?
Okay, that's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
The numbers are relatively close to the same, if not exactly the same, because and the staff that has had now 7+ years to implement the buyback program, they have done virtually nothing to eliminate that buyback program. So that the buyback program itself has done nothing. Just because of attrition, a few gillnet licenses may have fallen off. I don't know that, but I just tell you, just roughly, there's around 100 to 120 active gillnetters in Washington that fish the Columbia River, and the vast majority of them make under about $5,000 a year. So it's really just a hobby for somebody that I'm not sure, outside of I'm not sure I could say this for certain. I don't know that anybody just makes a living off of just gillnetting on the Columbia River.
Yeah. Well, and second part of that question, I guess, seems how we're on that topic. And there were a handful of different articles written after the decision was handed down, and Don McKessick was recorded in saying and described gillnetting as a bridge to alternative selective commercial gear in the future. And I thought, how is that a bridge to selective commercial gear in the future? We just had 7 years of a program in place where there was a whole lot of feet dragging going on to ensure that there was not a successful buyback opportunity and or a serious look into alternative gear, from what we've been led to believe. How much effort was truly put into bridging that, as Don likes to put, bridging that into moving towards selective gear versus just sticking with gillnets?
I would say not much.
Yeah.
Honestly, you had talked about the botched studies that they did on alternative gear, which, by the way, we know works. I mean, you look at the Colvilles. I mean, you look at what David was saying that was on here earlier. They understand that gillnets aren't the answer, and they're looking at other tools as well. But that pound trap has been run relatively very successfully, depending on how you look at it, in the lower Columbia River. So for it to, I mean, that's kind of a misleading statement. If it was a bridge, they had 7 years to bridge it, and they've done virtually nothing to do that. So again, it just is another excuse to drag this out for a longer period of time, unfortunately.
Well, there's those in the camp of aligning themselves with the gillnet commercial fishery. Now, don't get us wrong. And I'll just say this for myself, that I believe obviously there is a time and place for commercial harvest. We need commercial harvest to help remove hatchery fish to a point. We also need commercial harvest to provide fish for the market as something that's been a long-standing recognized operation within the Pacific Northwest and beyond. But the fact that we can't convert to some type of selective harvest measure is where I get hung up on. The non-discriminate, non-selective harvest measures, and it's 2020 when we have so many fish runs, 13 or so, I believe, on the Columbia River of itself, that are ESA listed or on the peril of disaster. But yet we won't move that direction. It's talked about often, Nello. And it's become just words that are thrown out on the table as far as I'm concerned when we say, well, there's 4 components to salmon recovery in the Pacific Northwest. We have hatchery, we have hydro, we have habitat, and we have harvest. And there's millions upon millions of dollars spent on habitat. There is millions upon millions of dollars spent on hatchery reform, upgrading hatcheries, building new hatcheries, allocating funds and monies towards the orca recovery, which bolster the numbers of Chinook being produced from these hatcheries. And there's also hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on research and development if we were actually going to get serious about dam removal. All of those conversations happen, and yet when it comes to harvest, we continue to hang our hat on utilization of gillnets, and we can't move the needle when it comes to finding alternative methods. I'm just not sure how many more years we can sustain this type of ideology.
Yeah, hey, you're absolutely right. I mean, the longer we continue to use gillnets as the tool for commercial harvest, the more we put our runs in jeopardy. I mean, we just don't want it to get to a point where, the point of no return. But look, we know that alternative gears work. I mean, if you look at what the Adrian Toohey and the group from Wild Fish Conservancy are doing on that pound trap in the lower river and Cathlamet, having great success. When you look at what the Colvilles are doing up in the upper Columbia with great success with purse seines, even when you look at the study, as folks call it a botch study, but the study that was done on purse seines and beach seine on the Columbia, even they're doing, it's interesting because still their mortality rates are still lower than they are with large and small mesh gillnet. So just from that alone, you think you would want to transition over. But look, it's the way we've been doing it forever. When I say we, as our society, as we were a part of it, we've been doing it forever. And something you may not know about me with a last name like Picinich, a good old Croatian name. I mean, I have family. I grew up in West Seattle that were gillnetters, so I am in no way against commercial fishing.
Yeah,
we got to find a sustainable way to keep our salmon runs around, and I think everybody knows that gillnets aren't the answer. Whether or not they want to admit it and embrace the change, that's a different story.
So with the reform rollback, what's going to happen to our hatchery production numbers?
Well, gillnets are not going to help with the increasing hatchery numbers. That is for certain, especially if the goal is to capture the hatchery fish and let the wild fish escape. And again, I'm going to refer back to David that was on the phone earlier. I think he did a wonderful job of talking about what do you do when there's 20,000 Chinook, wild hatchery Chinook coming back in 1,000 wild fish. You want to figure out how to get those 20,000 hatchery, not that 1,000 wild. They know that gillnets are not the answer to get there. We know it's not the answer. So unless we can find a way to get those hatchery fish out and harvest them, our hatchery numbers are going to keep dwindling. Now, there is this misconception out there that gillnets help with keeping hatchery fish off the spawning grounds, and it is just not true. And it's just pretty simple logic. Two things. One, if they were the best tool to be used, we would have implemented them, right? And we wouldn't have the dwindling hatchery production because of that. And then the other thing is they just harvest the same percentage of hatchery as they do wild when they're swimming side by side. But the other thing, two more things, but they also fish in mixed stock fisheries. So right. Even though you take the scenario of 20,000 hatchery and 1,000 wild in the Nisqually, you did hear that on a pink year that complicates things because now all of a sudden you got to mix another element to that mixed stock fishery. And that happens in the Columbia in every fishery. There's wild steelhead, hatchery steelhead. And by the way, the steelhead are A-run and B-run steelhead. You got sturgeon, you got endangered sockeye, you got coho, you've got endangered Chinook, of course, from lower upper mid-river. So it is the essence of the mixed stock fishery in the main stem, and we just can't use gillnets. And then the last thing I would just say is that selective recreational fisheries are extremely effective at being able to live capture and sort those fish. And, you hear another common thing from, albeit from surprised the heck out of me, from, even a recreational group, that recreational fishermen can't catch all the fish. And I would just ask, has that been studied? Is there any documentation? But even without that, when was the last time that you've seen a fully prosecuted fishery on the recreational fishery on the Columbia where it was, let's just say, for example, a 6-fish limit and open 7 days a week? I mean, right now the recreational fishery is so constrained. Look at Buoy 10 this year. I mean,
yeah.
You had a number of weekends in a row and that was it.
Well, and it's been an unforeseen bumper crop this year, so they keep extending the recreational opportunity. But a couple points off of what you just stated there, Nello. the recreational fleet has proven itself in its ability to harvest fish, selectively harvest fish, and do a very good job. We don't have a lot of reports coming out from the upper tributaries and stretches of the Columbia River and tributaries where we have a problem with a lot of hatchery fish hitting the gravel. So I think we need to make a point of saying that unless it's a major issue that we're dealing with, this overabundance of hatchery fish intermixing and naturally spawning on the gravel, then that's just kind of a moot point that the gillnet mop-up deal is just kind of something people like to throw around.
Yeah, absolutely, Dwayne. And I would just add, again, there's hatchery traps. I mean, there's weirs. There's things that we can do. If it's a problem in a specific tributary, there are other solutions that we can implement to help with that problem. And like you said, Dwayne, when it's a problem.
Right. Well, I want to do this because you are available, and we got a couple things going on. One, we're running a little bit late, Tommy, but we have way too much info to get through here. Nello, we haven't even touched on the commission, the decision, how we got there, where the governor's role lies in on this, commission person selection, all that. There's a number of things I want to tackle here before we're done with you this evening. That being said, we're going to jump out for a break and jump to our bait lab. Our final segment of this evening was going to be with our buddy Kelly Barnum. He's in the Elkwoods, and he may not be reachable. So don't be surprised if I call you back to finish out this segment so we can tackle this commission decision and what it truly means moving forward on the Columbia River, if you're good with that.
That sounds good, Dwayne. I appreciate it. Great show, great audience. Thanks for having me on. And if it works out, look forward to chatting a little bit more tonight.
Perfect. Thank you very much. We'll take a break and we'll come back right here on Fish Out Northwest. Allied boats are built by West Coast fishermen for West Coast fishermen. Deep V 21-degree dead rise at the transom guarantees a smooth ride no matter the conditions. Allied offers all of our boats with Honda outboard packages so that you can take full advantage of the reliability and 5-year top-to-prop warranty from your Honda outboard. Allied boats range from 19 to 32 foot in length, so no matter what type of heavy gauge boat you are looking for, we have it for you. All of our Corsair 21 foot and larger designs come standard with reverse chine that is welded inside and out with no extrusions below the waterline, so that you will never have to worry about corrosion problems down the road. Get out on the water today in a boat that you can trust and enjoy with Allied Boats. Contact us at Allied Boats today to learn much more about our incredible fishing machines.
What if there was a smarter way to search for your new home? Introducing the Better Homes and Gardens real estate website and mobile app. This revolutionary new search tool puts your needs first. Narrow your search to what matters most to your family, like school data, school districts, and even walk scores. Get easy access to your local affiliated agent, as well as unique and local insights about neighborhoods and properties directly within the app. With synced and saved preferences, you'll always pick up wherever you left off. Get your smarter search started today with Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate.
Hey, welcome back, Fish Out Northwest. Dwayne England here in the Bait Lab for this week's how-to. All how-to segments in the Bait Lab brought to you or presented by Max Lure. With that, looking down here at the table, I got a number of things that I'm going to talk about. So this really comes down to creating home brew, or so to speak, home powder. We're making powdered scents that you can add to some of your cures when, mostly for me, it's when I'm curing eggs and when I add that extra something that I know up until now, once I put this out there, Josh, that most are not using, though some may just think it's way too overkill, it's too much to take on, why would you waste your time and money? That being said, it could be the difference on any given day on a river when your eggs are outperforming others simply by adding some extra additives that you've created at home by yourself. Now, for most of us that fish year-round on all different fisheries, especially if you have different boats or get out on the saltwater and utilize certain types of bait, and then you have bait left over at the end of the day, it's easy just to throw those overboard and get rid of them, or you can hang on to them and turn them into something else that you can use at a later date. So I have in front of me bottles of dehydrated and ground fish flesh, basically herring. I have anchovy, I have mackerel, I have sardine, I have tuna belly, which is extremely oily. And it took a long time to dry out in my dehydrator, but I was able to make it work simply then after I ground it up by mixing in some Pautzke's natural Baraxel fire, added as a kind of stabilizer in helping absorb some of that extra oil moisture, but yet holds it in suspension. That tuna belly with all those natural oils is an additional great additive that I can sprinkle onto my eggs when I'm curing them. So, you know, how do we get there? How do I take sardine or mackerel or any of these fleshy fish baits and turn them into powder? Well, it's a lot easier than you would think. First of all, you just got to get online. You know, I use Amazon a lot. Who doesn't? And find yourself a decent dehydrator. Specifically, once you start putting fish and things in there, you're probably not going to use it for fruit and vegetables any longer. If you do, your spouse may think twice about allowing you to do anything in the kitchen. So I also suggest, and Josh would vouch for this, you do this out in the garage or some other room away from the house, because for a couple days your garage, you know, smoking fish is one thing, dehydrating fish flesh is an entirely different process and a different funkified smell that you can't get rid of for a couple days. But it may be worth it. Okay, so we're taking basically, this is a whole sardine. You can buy them in multiple packs of 4 or 5. Raised Baits does a nice job putting multiple sardines in a packet. It's reasonably priced, and you can buy those whole. You can buy them already filleted out, but typically you get those if you have lack of time and or going to use those to wrap on your plugs and don't want to fillet your own. But you can get whole sardines, and that allows you to get a lot of meat off of this single sardine. Okay, basically we're going to take this fish, and I'm going to turn it into this dried out sardine. This stuff is basically rock hard and completely dehydrated, although the oil is suspended here in the meat, in the flesh, and we'll show you how to grind that up into powder in a minute. But first of all, I want to take this sardine, and just like most fish, you're just going to fillet this sucker right off the bone. Just go down the spine like this. Now I set this out here a while ago. I typically like to leave them just a little bit frozen when doing this. It makes it really easy to cut them up when they're slightly frozen. I get the guts out of it because the guts just add extra moisture into the flesh and not necessarily extra oil. Okay, really what I'm after is that fleshy natural oil that brings a lot of scent to the party and makes your eggs smell completely different than what a lot of other people are doing. The other thing you can do is you can also take this top piece here and you just cut that off the backbone there, and you get that little chunk out of there. So basically, when it's all said and done, you're not wasting a whole lot there, okay? So we move that, and now I have these that I just cut into smaller chunks. And the reason I cut them into smaller chunks, you'll see here as I pull that over, is because it just makes it to where they dry out a lot faster than taking all day long to dry out these pieces here. So now with these anchovy, because they're so small, filleting them out takes too much time. I decided that a while ago. So really all I do is I cut the head off the anchovy, okay, and then I just split up the middle right down the line here. And as I pull that knife through, it pretty much cleans the gut cavity out. Again, getting the guts out of it is the key, okay? So you just clean that anchovy out, get all them guts out of there so you got a nice little piece of flesh there. Again, we'll just cut the heads off and clean the gut trail out just like that. Pops it right out the end, and you're pretty much clean. Now I'm just going to take these, and they don't have to be, you know, micro size, but we're just going to cut those up into decent sized pieces, okay? And then we're just going to take them and spread them out here on our tray, okay? And I'm going to basically do that, repeat it multiple times. So I'll do that with herring, I'll do it with anchovies, I'll do it, you know, these sardine are easy. We just cut them into decent sized pieces like this, okay? And again, it's more so that they dry out in a reasonable amount of time. It doesn't take days to do it. Typically, I'll put all sardines on one tray. I'll put all anchovies on another tray. I'll put the mackerel on another tray. But you guys get the idea. It's just sorting them out to keep them separated, because I want those specific scents created in each bottle, and I'm going to label those to be the exact type of fish or flesh that they are, okay? Once those sit in the dryer, usually it takes about a full day or two, depending on how many trays I stack in my dehydrator, okay? So this is basically sardine. This is a couple, 3 sardines all filleted up, cut into pieces. The other thing you're going to want to purchase, so you get your dehydrator and then look for a coffee bean grinder. I looked for one that had stainless steel blades on it just to make sure I wasn't going to prematurely wear it out. Coffee beans are relatively hard. This stuff is not as hard as you would think, especially when it's dehydrated and dried out. It's very lightweight. It pulverizes very easily. And so a pretty decent sized coffee grinder, stainless steel, well built. You can put a good amount in here. The other reason for cutting them into these smaller pieces is just for that, so that it fits into your grinder just that much better. You don't have a bunch of big pieces you're trying to cram in there. And really, it's just a matter of pushing this down, and I like to shake it around because it kind of tosses it up and down. It just completely grinds all of that sardine flesh into very small pieces that, now, when you use this for curing eggs, okay, and the thing about curing eggs is you're creating eggs in a bag or container when you add your cure, and they juice out, and all that moisture and all that liquid comes out of them. When you sprinkle this dehydrated fish flesh, and all the suspended oils in there onto your eggs, when you sprinkle this onto your eggs, as those eggs will juice out, and your bag or your container gets full of juice, all this rehydrates. And then as those eggs draw that juice back in, some of these oils of this flesh and all these natural oils and scent are going to get pulled into those eggs. And literally, when you put those eggs in the water, and it creates that nice milk trail, especially for Chinook fishing. Okay, let's talk specifically for Chinook and coho. When those eggs milk out and put that scent trail downriver, it's not just emitting just that egg scent. Now, you have those natural oils and that flesh and that scent and that odor of those fish fleshes that are actually in there with the milk juice coming out of your eggs. And so it's kind of twofold in that it adds extra bite stimulant, it adds that little extra scent that perhaps the other guys fishing along the riverbank don't necessarily have. I've seen it work time and time again. Sardine is a really good one to go to, especially for Chinook in lower estuary areas of rivers where you have tidal influence. The tuna works extremely well. Also, believe it or not, it works very well for coho. So if you're curing eggs and want to grind up some tuna meat that you have, left over from trimmings off a tuna, you dehydrate that, you pulverize it into powder, and you sprinkle that. So I will lay out my egg skeins. I will sprinkle on my powdered cure just like I normally do before I put them into a bag or container. And I will also sprinkle on, that's why I save these old containers here, I will also sprinkle on this powdered flesh right on top of the eggs, and then I mix those into the bag or mix them into the container or whatever, and just create that environment of eggs with a lot of extra juices on them. So every container gets labeled. All different fish go into their separate container. Again, I don't mix them all up. So this is sardine. I just continue to build that. And you'd be amazed, it doesn't take many fish to fill up a container this size. Use your old seasoning containers out of the kitchen or whatever you have. Wash them out and make sure they don't smell like what was in there previously, and start grinding up your fish. Again, tuna belly works really well, extremely oily, takes a little extra time. Sardine is a definite go-to. Mackerel, because it has so much natural oil suspended in them. Guys may ask, why don't you just use, like your Mike's, Atlas Mike's oils and things like that? I have found over the years when curing eggs, when they're in that stage of where they're creating all that fluid, when they're juicing out, and I put that oil, that man-made synthetic type oils, or those oils with scents, into your egg mix, it actually inhibits the egg's ability to draw all that liquid back in. You're going to find that your bag or your container has a substantial more amount of juice left in it when you're done curing your eggs than it normally would. And it's simply because that oil interrupts the natural reaction of the egg's ability to reabsorb that juice. So I stopped doing that years ago after a couple failed attempts. I have found that by adding natural scents, ground up flesh with natural oils into the mix, it draws that stuff right back in. Your eggs do smell somewhat different because they have a totally different additive to them, a totally different bite stimulant. So use it for when curing eggs. You can sprinkle it into other, if you're curing other meats and things like that for flesh type baits if you're fishing out in saltwater, but it's not necessary. I wouldn't waste it for that. I would hang on to your leftover baits after days of fishing. If plug fishermen in the rivers, if you're wrapping sardine onto your plugs and you get done for the day and all you've done is put a little salt to them, take those extra pieces and throw them in your fridge for a couple days. And once you get a little pile of them, put them in your dehydrator, save those, grind them up, add those to your eggs when you're fishing the rivers with eggs. And you're going to find that it's very useful to do so. Doesn't cost you a lot of extra money to get set up for it. And you're actually using your bait instead of throwing it out, and you're using it for something else that you plan on doing anyway. Fishing eggs under a float for Chinook and coho. All right, that's going to do it for us here in the Bay Lab this week. Join us each and every week as we bring you more how-tos right here at the Fish on Northwest Bay Lab. We'll jump out for a quick break. Be back in the studio right after this. Defiance boats are built without any structural wood materials. That is why we back our boats with a lifetime warranty. All of our Defiance boats come standard with large fish boxes that are fully insulated so that you can ice your fish properly all day. Defiance boats feature a 21 to 22 degree dead rise at the transom and a large reverse chine for incredible handling and stability offshore. Defiance boats are foam flotation filled and unsinkable for the ultimate in safety while fishing offshore. Defiance boats feature fuel-efficient hull designs with large fuel tank capacity so that you can have maximum fuel range for making long offshore runs completely safe and affordable. All Defiance boats come standard with self-bailing decks for improved safety while at sea. Defiance Boat offers all our boats with Honda outboard packages so that you can take full advantage of the reliability and 5-year top-to-prop warranty from your Honda outboard. Defiance boats for all your boating needs, and let us help you get out on the water.
Okay.
Hey, welcome back in the studio. Here we are, Dwayne Neal and Tommy Donlin winding down. I'm gonna give you a raise. I'm gonna give you an extra.
Oh yeah, 2 cents.
I'm gonna give you a buck.
Yeah.
Keep you around if we can follow up with maybe finishing it up with Nello. We'll see how this goes. So we're getting late into the show. Kelly Barnum, former co-host and still involved with the show from time to time, assisting as much as you can with your busy life, and really appreciate everything you still help us do, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Yeah.
I mean, I got a bull elk in the cooler.
Yeah.
I got a cold bush light in my hand.
Ew.
You got hair
everybody, everybody is healthy and safe, which
right
after the week I've had is a big deal.
Yeah. Thank God the outcome of that whole deal, buddy. That was frightening to say the least. So glad everybody is fine. So God bless you on that one. So and you got hair down to your shoulders, which is where you get
Goldilocks.
Which is where he gets his strength. Okay.
Dude, yeah. It was beautiful flowing Fabio hair.
Oh my God.
Okay.
It's not so flowing when I don't have product in it, and it's weird for me to say product. I feel kind of a little weird about it.
I feel dirty.
No kidding. Are we a lover's package or what?
Oh, this has just gone weird. I'll have you know, the bearded one, Jordan, referred to you as Bob Ross when he saw you in the woods with the boys and those
man,
floating out everywhere.
And I know it's getting really long when I put my binoculars on, and I have my bino caddy, and I have to like pull it out of the straps because it's like, like what is going on?
Oh my God!
Is there any plan to cut that in the future, or is it just you're just full on committed now?
I don't know. Everything I do in life is like, if it bothers me, then I'll deal with it. And so far, it doesn't really bother me, so I'm not really dealing with it.
Yeah.
Man, are we going to talk about elk hunting here or what?
We are.
All right.
We're talking about our hair and like where we go to get perm.
Anyway, hey, you and the boys got out opening day, and as per script, it's almost as if it is scripted each and every year within opening day or day two. The Barnums put a bull in the cooler, right, buddy? So let's.
It was a really interesting opening weekend with, I want to say the weather, but not so much the weather in the sense of how it affected things. But that smoke was really socked in.
Yeah.
we had little to maybe even zero air movement. I mean, that was the craziest thing about opening weekend is, you know, everybody, when you're on the coast, it's like, oh, that tide change wind, that tide change wind. That never happened all weekend.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we're dealing with, you know, mid-70 temperatures and just zero air movement. And so that made getting on bulls, and when you had a responsive bull, like, extremely tricky because you were dealing more with thermals and not with a real wind, and the thermals didn't want to be, like, super dependable directional. So opening morning, we were on, I mean, a trophy class Roosevelt, just an absolute giant, and would be the biggest bull I've killed by far.
Oh, wow.
And I had him within 40 yards multiple times, but it was one of those situations where it was heavy cover, and when I'd do a setup on him and start calling, I'd feel that wind change, and I'd puff the wind indicator, and it would be the wrong direction, so I'd have to shift. And we did that about 4 or 5 times, and then I finally got to a position where, okay, here he comes. I have a lane I can actually see here, you know, with a 40-yard lane without the cover, but I didn't get where I wanted to be. I ended up having to set up because it was all happening so fast, and he ends up crossing that lane at about probably 37, 38 yards, and all I can see is like the top 8 inches of his back. And that was it. And because of the fact that this encounter had been going on for probably a half an hour, 45 minutes, that was the one opportunity I had. And he's like, you know, something ain't right here. And he ended up working up the hill, and we could never make it happen. When you're that close to a bull and you got to shift because you feel that wind shift, I mean, what's your tack there? Are you trying to, like, you know, hit the ground and be quiet, or are you you're shifting because he's still out of view from you? Yeah, I'm just going. Like, okay. I'm just like, so, I mean, I'm like, the bull's right here, and, I mean, at one point, he was probably inside 30 yards, but the salmon berries were probably 6-7 feet tall. So it was, I mean, I had about a 15-yard lane, and I feel the wind hit. I mean, I literally just turned, and there were 3 of us, but we literally just turn and sprint to get out of that situation.
Wow.
Like, not trying to be quiet. I mean, we're a bull elk.
Right.
You know, and sometimes I wonder if they're like, what is this? Or if they're like, oh, he's trying to win me. You know, like, I mean, because that's the constant battle that's going on. The bull's trying to get a dominant win so that he knows what's going on, and he would assume, I would think, that any bull that wants to challenge him would be doing the same thing. So, I mean, you can get away as long, like I said, if they don't see you, any noise that you make in that situation is a bull elk. You know, I mean, they've come in, they've already decided that you're a bull elk. So as long as they can't see you and decide you're not, or smell you and decide you're not, everything you're doing is a bull elk.
Wouldn't you think, a large percentage of folks in that same situation, Barnum, would more than likely, I'd say inexperienced folks, would more than likely try to creep out of there? You know, versus your mentality. Creep out of there, or just get totally lost in the moment and not think of what their wind's doing in that situation. Good point. Yeah.
I mean, all the way. I mean, until you release the arrow, there's nothing more important than that wind. And so, I mean, I don't care if that bull's, you know, just ready to step over a rise, and in 3 steps he's going to be in a position where I can shoot him. I mean, if that wind changes and it's not in my favor, I have to exit that situation as fast as I can, because I will not trick his nose.
Sure.
Yeah,
no matter what. So, I mean, I can trick everything else. I can trick his eyesight. I can trick his hearing, but I will not trick his nose. And the bull that we ended up killing on Sunday was kind of that situation where he pinned us. I mean, he looked right at us at 30 yards, but he couldn't figure out what we were, so he kept coming, you know. And that was a situation where that was a fun hunt with just me and my youngest son, Hudson, and it was a very good learning experience for him on learning how to be super aggressive, but then at times being super patient.
So was he staring at you when you drew, and did you have to take a frontal shot, or did he turn broadside for you?
So he ended up, so how the situation happened was this bull, I know where these elk are going to be. They ended up crossing the road in the dark in front of us, and we went and made probably 2 or 3 hours worth of other hunts because I wanted them to get up into the timber that I knew they were going to, where they were going to bed. And so So about 3 hours later, we came back. We go into that timber. Those elk are right where I expect them to be. We kind of bump them with a little bit of calling, and they kind of start moving. Well, we have to go through 3 or 4 really steep drainages to get up to where that bull finally decides this is where I'm going to make my stand. And as we're going up, it's probably about 150 foot kind of bank straight down, 150 foot bank up the other side, just really steep cut terrain. As we're coming up the other side, the bull's right on the flat at the top of this cut. And I mean, we're being super aggressive, really going at him. And then I get to like the last 15 yards of that up push to where he's going to be on the flat above us. And I look at, and Hudson's like, just get up there. He's right there. I was like, no, we need to give him 5 or 10 minutes. So he backs away from this edge so we can get over this edge so we can get set up to call him in and make the shot. But if I crest this hill right now, we're going to be face to face because he knows I'm coming. He heard us.
Right.
And he's going to want an encounter in a disadvantage, which is going to be me coming up the hill. I mean, if I'm a bull elk and somebody's charging up a hill, like I'm going to be at the top of the hill ready to go head to head where you're still halfway up the hill.
Right.
And so we took like a 5-6 minute break, let everything calm down. The woods went silent. We made that last 10, 15 feet, got up on the flat. The elk was nowhere to be seen, but there was a little bit of a hump there, and I said, the bull's on the other side of that hump. I'll make one call. He'll be in our lap. And I did. I made one call. Here he comes. You know, I can hear him coming. As I see the tips of antlers, I come to full draw.
Okay.
My son's about 4 yards to my right. He's not at full draw yet. The bull comes in. I have the bull at probably 25 yards, quarter 2, but I can't tell if he's legal. If you see the pictures, he's a pretty young bull.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
I can't tell for sure if he's legal. He's got something goofy going on one side, and the other side has some points, but are they big enough? Like, can I shoot this bull? And as he gets into about 15 yards, he stops and looks at us and has us pinned. I mean, we're not hiding. We're just knelt in the trees.
Yeah.
And he turns his head, and I look at Hudson. I go, he's legal. And so Hudson pulls his bow back with the bull looking right at him, and the bull continues to come.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
Young bull.
Walks it up to about 12 yards, and I go, shoot him. And he stops, and Hudson goes, you shoot him.
No kidding.
Yeah. And I go, no, you shoot him. And he goes, I don't have a shot. And I go, oh, Jesus. And I lean out, and I touch my release. And, I mean, as quick as I touch my release, Hudson followed it up with his own. And, I mean, within a millisecond of each other, both them arrows. Mine was probably slightly quarter 2. His was pretty much full frontal. But, I mean,
oh my God.
my arrow blew right through him. Hudson's buried all the way to the fletching.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that bull never had any sort of a chance. But I figured out Hudson's routine on that. It's like, oh, you know, Dad always kills the big ones. I always kill the small one. This one's not very big. You shoot him first.
Yeah, you waited until you sent it, and then so you could hold back.
See, the whole deal was this young bull's walking up while the old bull and the young bull are having a conversation.
Right.
So, I see how this goes. It sounds like the young bull has learned. Yeah.
Yeah, so we get down to this elk, and I'm like, all right, sweet. Well, he's down. Like, so whose elk is this? And Hudson's, it's not mine. You shot first.
You're taking it.
Saw that coming, Dad. Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? I'll keep the streak alive. You don't know how the rest of the season's going.
Right.
Right.
One in the hand is better than two in the bush. Young
Amen to that.
Yeah.
So, hey, you were saying that it's gotten a little bit rougher the past few days. Like, what conditions have changed, or what do you think's actually happening?
So, I mean, the weather changed. We had a big barometer drop.
Yeah.
We had weather come in. We had rainfall. We're still kind of battling the smoke a little bit out on the coast. I mean, it's gotten better, but it's still not great. I mean, the first weekend, there was a handful of bulls that were killed. You know, the guys that I would expect to kill bulls kind of in our area all killed bulls. The elk killers definitely got it done. But, I mean, over the last 3 or 4 days, it's been pretty quiet. And I think the barometer is kind of up and down with these little showers and stuff that are coming through. But I wonder if a lot of it is just the humidity. I mean, the humidity right now on the coast is just uncharted. I mean, we wake up in the morning at 7 o'clock and it's 68, 69 degrees, and the humidity has to be like 90%.
Sure.
I mean, as soon as you get out of the truck, sweating.
Right.
And if you're an elk or a deer or any animal that lives by its nose, you need that humidity to be able to smell good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I really think with the smoke in the air and this high humidity, like, their sense of smell is just like out of control right now compared to where it was Saturday and Sunday. And I just think that has them like on the cautious side. I mean, they can smell everything and they're just not looking to be super confrontational.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know? And on top of the fact, I mean, the pressure over this first 4 or 5 days has been off the charts.
Lots of
I
folks.
think, I mean, just, you have a lot of areas that were still closed for fire danger.
Right.
And it was really packing everybody into like these small areas. And I mean, we hunt a lot of walk-in stuff, and we've never had any issues with vehicles behind gates and stuff like that. And this year has been like every law that could be broken has been broken.
That sucks.
Oh, that's terrible.
I hate that.
Yeah.
Like,
Really hate that.
It's been insanity, and I think people are feeling a little bit desperate with everything that's going on in the world, and it's just been a weird year with people. Not necessarily elk-wise, but just people-wise, it's been just a weird year.
Yeah, for sure.
So
with these elk, so you were talking about the humidity and temperature. You know, Roosevelt, or would you consider Roosevelt to be more of like kind of a local elk as opposed to a Rocky? Whereas when you get a temperature change, the temperature goes up. It's not like you're going to have those Roosevelts climb the nearest mountain and try to get to 7,000 feet, right? Because it doesn't exist. I mean, they're going to pretty much hunker down and just, instead of, you know, going someplace else and chatting and talking more, they're just going to shut up and sit down, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would really compare, like, most of these Roosevelts in, like, the timber country and, like, the farmland. I mean, they're more like a deer. I mean, they live probably in maybe a 1 square mile, 2 square mile at the most. And when they feel pressure, they're not going to, take off and go 7 or 8 miles. And they don't really have any elevation that they can get to. They're just going to get down in that heavy cover in the 15-year-old reprod or in the, you know, the heavy salmonberry, and they're just going to shut down.
Yeah.
And they're going to go completely nocturnal to where you're not going to see them in the daylight, and the bulls are just not going to be responsive unless you're right in their face.
Yeah.
And so that kind of becomes the key of knowing where elk live and, you know, kind of doing away with the locate bugle. I mean, I'm still doing the locate bugle, but I know that I've encountered elk on this flat and this timber 7 or 8 times over the last 4 or 5 years, and I'm just going to walk down there and see if they're there.
Yeah.
And you just hope that you bump into them, and in that bump that you get the bull excited.
Right.
So, I mean, that's the best you can do at this point.
Well, it sounds like both the boys still need to get their elk. Dad's doing pretty good. So
yeah.
You guys hitting it morning and night through the end of season. What's your plan?
Yeah, I mean we're basically out hitting it whenever we can when I don't have to be at work or the kids don't have to be in their Zoom school. You know, that type of stuff. And Hudson's already badmouthing me because he says every year Dad kills his elk and then the next day he's in whitetail mode.
You've already been talking about going to the property. Hey, we better go check property. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
I'm getting game camera pictures every 2 hours, and I'm trying, look at this. Yeah. And they're like, it's elk season.
It's elk season. They're talking to me about those scrawny whitetail.
Yeah, that's what the late hunt is for.
That's funny. Yeah. Well, congrats on yet another one for the freezer and for the family, and hope you still got time to get those boys on an animal or two here before the end of the season, buddy.
Oh yeah, we're gonna push super hard through the end of the season, and I mean the weather is gonna calm down.
Yep.
Here after we're going to get some pretty good rain tonight and tomorrow, it sounds like, and then I think things are really going to calm down, and I think the next 3 or 4 days will be pretty good elk hunting.
Yep.
So,
right on.
Okay, well, great to hear from you. Glad you had time to check in with us tonight. Don't be a stranger. I may call on you here. Tommy's got a few dates of hunting. He may not join me in studio, and if you're laying around the house on the back porch drinking a bush, I'll save you. I'll save you and bring you here and feed you a Coors. So anyway,
good.
All right, buddy. Good to check in.
Thanks,
Take
brother.
care. Tell the family hi.
All right, thanks, guys.
You bet. Take
Bye.
care. Bye.
All right, bye.
Yep.
I'm fired up again.
Scripted.
Ready
I'm
to go,
you.
man.
The
Oh my
Barnums
God.
and elk.
That's just
script.
awesome.
It's a script to the end of an elk.
Yeah. He's just got him dialed. I mean, he's like a herd bull. He gets, Barnum gets in there. It's all about a given situation. What's the setup? Yep. Where's the bull at? Yep. What's the wind doing? What is that bull expecting? What should I be providing?
There's something to be said about history in hunting a given area, a large area, but hunting it your entire life.
Yeah.
And just knowing the ins and outs, and based on what the weather is doing and the direction of wind, where those animals are going to be.
Yeah.
Because a lot of guys go into that area, maybe they've hunted it for a couple of years, and you're locating, bugles and your tops of ridges and locating, nothing, get back in the truck, go drive over to another ridge and try to find, and then maybe go hike up to a ridge and see, and you're just trying to figure them out.
Yeah.
Barnum's like, based on the wind this morning and kind of the weather and what I'm thinking,
they're going to be right here.
We're going to go over here today.
Right.
And
it's an amazing animal that large can hide.
Oh,
but they totally can't.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're ghosts.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Yep. He's got some great philosophies on hunting elk. There's no doubt about it. You spend some time with him in the woods, you're going to learn some stuff.
He makes me feel bad calling a Roosevelt a whitetail. That just makes me feel like crap. Anybody can get a whitetail.
Anybody can get a whitetail. Yeah. Anyway. All right, we have run a little long, as of course, because we started a little late. We got some information we didn't get to, but that's okay. I am going to extend an invite to Nello next week for part 2, kind of like I did with Tom Ryle a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
It spawned a whole lot of questions, and things came up in conversation that we didn't quite put a cap on, so we got Tom back on the phone a week later. I think, Nello, if you're still watching Night Indoor, I'll call you this week, but I would like to finish part 2 of that. We really need to delve into, Tommy, the position of the commission. I want people to understand moving forward the importance of the governor's position in selecting those commissioners and how their votes weigh in on things that then trickle down into commercial and recreational harvest opportunities, restraints on opportunities, and a whole list of things that fall in line with that. Yeah. So it's an important conversation to have that we will have here on Fish Hunt Northwest. So I'll reach out to him. And to be honest, we have fans and followers of all walks, and we do have gillnetters that watch our show. They work for a living. They also gillnet as part of their livelihood. Any and all persons involved with commercial harvest or gillnetting or any of the conservation groups, if you want to weigh in on gillnets in their place or not, you can contact me or Tommy via Facebook. Our phone numbers are out there via our Facebook page. Call me up. Let's have a conversation. You want to get on the show and talk about it? Let's do it, because we are one that affords opportunity on all sides to have those conversations, because I think it's healthy and folks need to be educated from both sides of the rail.
Well, and even as you and I were talking about earlier today, not even all the sport fishermen are aligned around this reform rollback, right?
Yep.
Ocean fishery, hatchery production. What does that do to our ocean fisheries? There's many multiple sides and facets of the discussion.
Oh yeah. And we have a lot of folks weighing in together, and we have a lot of separation amongst our own community. So things to follow up on. So all right, we got some things to get done throughout this next week. I'm pretty sure we got some clams to go dig tomorrow morning. It's going to probably be raining at this point, but I don't care. Clam dig and a surf perch. If you want to join us, it's late. We put the notice out a few days ago. If you care to join us, we're going to be there meeting up with some folks at Monty Square here just outside Montesano at 5 a.m. And then we're going to head on out to the beach, meet up with a few more folks. And me and the Beard, we're going to dig some clams, do a little surf perch, and then call it a day depending on how much it rains. So something to look forward to. And we have a whole host of clam digs coming up in case you missed the memo. These are the things we would have talked about at the start of the show, but we ran out of time. These 4 days of the opener of back into clam digging, you have 4 morning tides or daylight time frames to dig your clams. After that, we go nocturnal, just like elk and deer, and we are digging clams under headlamp, which starts, I believe, the 20th or 21st. So, but you have 35 more evenings to dig clams through into December from starting this week. So that's a pretty good opportunity. And there's still inwards of around 5 million clams, they say.
It's a lot of clams.
And they're nice size because they haven't been harvested since early spring due to the COVID. So take opportunity to get out and dig your clams. There are more than enough to go around. Matter of fact, I think they should bump the limit. That's the key.
You know what? If they bump the limit, I might just go razor clamming for the first time ever.
That would be impressive.
Yeah.
Of course, you, being the gorilla you are, you'll plunge that clam gun into the
smoke
earth.
5 clams at a time.
You'll pull it out,
And I'll just have shells
the
and
earth
clams.
will just drain into the hole that you create. So
Yeah.
I can see that happening. All right, we've extended our stay, and we've extended your stay with us this evening. We're going to bounce out of here. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Join us each and every week throughout the week on our Facebook page. Jump over to our YouTube channel, which continues to grow, by the way. Jump over to our YouTube channel, hit subscribe, do us a favor, share that content out with your friends. Get folks to come to our YouTube channel and subscribe. Check out everything we got going on here at Fish on Northwest. Messages up. We get a lot of messages throughout the week, Tommy.
Yeah.
People are chiming in and showing us their successes. Had a handful of folks send us their elk photos and whatnot throughout the week. It's fantastic. If you get out and get some clams, get out and get some salmon this week.
Get some elk.
Get some deer in your archery hunt that's going on right now. We got lots of opportunity. Let's see those photos. Post them up here at Fish on Northwest, and we'll share them with everybody. With that, we'll see you right back here next week live, 6 p.m. in the studio here at Fish on Northwest. Have a great week, everybody.